Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. If you want to see a case or topic covered by Paranormally Listed, then go to criminallylisted.com and fill out the questionnaire under the Suggest a Case tab. Number 3. Jessica Jalima Rohl. Kiss was a nightclub in Santa Maria, a city of 280,000 in South Brazil. A group of students from the Federal University of Santa Maria organized a party at Kiss to be held on January 26, 2013. That night, 2 bands were scheduled to perform. The party seemed like a success. 1,200 to 1,300 people attended. Most were between the ages of 18 and 21. Around 2:30 a.m. on January 27th, the second band was playing. They set off fireworks meant for outdoor use, and it set the ceiling on fire. The ceiling had acoustic foam insulation that was flammable. The burning foam emitted toxic fumes, including cyanide, into the nightclub. The fire spread quickly. Although the club had 1,200 to 1,300 people in it, its legal capacity was 700. Unfortunately, the nightclub didn't have a sprinkler system or a fire alarm. There was only one exit, and there was a stampede towards it. Another problem was that outside the club were metal gates for the line. The gates blocked people who did make it out the door. Firefighters had to smash a hole in an exterior wall to help people get out. Tragically, many people did not make it out of the club alive. 242 people were killed, and another 630 were injured. At least 90% were killed by smoke inhalation. About 50 bodies were found in the 2 bathrooms. It's believed they thought the bathroom doors were exits. It was the second deadliest fire in modern Brazilian history. It is surpassed only by the Nitro Circus fire in 1971, where 503 people were killed. About 70% of the people who died were children. Many were trampled to death by adults. The Kiss nightclub fire led to sweeping changes to fire code rules in Brazil. The 2 owners of the nightclub and 2 band members were convicted of manslaughter in December 2021. The nightclub owners were sentenced to 19 to 22 years in prison, and the band members were sentenced to 18 years in prison. But in August 2022, their convictions were overturned on a technicality, and they have not been retried. One of the party's organizers was 21-year-old Jessica Jalima Rohl. She was a Negra business student. She planned to go, but as she was getting ready, her 20-year-old boyfriend, Adriano Stefanel, called her. At the time, he was working in a different town, about 82 miles away. He begged her not to go to the event. It's unknown exactly why he didn't want her to go, but Adriano's father said he probably had a bad feeling. Jessica did as her boyfriend requested, and it ultimately saved her life. Afterward, Jessica considered Adriano her guardian angel. 4 days after the deadly fire, Jessica drove to the town where Adriano was working. Jessica and Adriano planned to drive back to Santa Maria on February 2nd, a week to the day of the party. Tragically, just a few yards into their journey, their Volkswagen Golf collided head-on with a truck. 21-year-old Jessica Jalima Rohl was killed instantly. Adriano Stefanel was taken to the hospital, but died shortly after arriving. He was a day shy of his 21st birthday. The couple was buried together. Adriano's father reflected on the tragedy by saying, quote, "When a person's mission here on earth comes to an end, whether in a nightclub or on the road or wherever, when their destiny doesn't give them any other way out, there's nothing left for us to do but accept the will of God." Unquote. Number 2. Alfa C Day. May 29, 1937 started off as a normal morning for 60-year-old Alfa C day. He went to work as the elevator operator at the Hollander Furniture Warehouse in Chicago, Illinois. Around 10:05 a.m., two men with furniture got onto the elevator on the main floor. They were going to the third floor of the 5-floor building. But before they left the ground floor, Alfa was suddenly struck dead with a 155-pound manhole cover that crashed into him from above. The two other men were uninjured. It turned out that there had been a buildup of flammable gas in the sewer outside the building. It's unclear what caused the buildup, but it's suspected that a cleaning company was illegally dumping chemicals into the sewer. For several days, people in the area had complained about a strange odor. The odor was strong just before Alfa Day was killed. Then, people heard a low rumble, followed by a loud clap that was comparable to thunder. Suddenly, 12 manhole covers on a mile stretch of road shot into the air. No fire shot up out of the sewer, just white vapor. The blast was strongest at the intersection where the Hollander building was located. One of the manhole covers from the intersection flew over 75 feet in the air and went above the building. If it had landed on the roof, it may have damaged the roof. However, it went through a skylight above the elevator shaft, dropped 7 stories, and landed on 60-year-old Alfa C Day, killing him. The explosion caused millions of dollars in damage, but no one else was killed or seriously injured. Number 1. Troy Leon Gregg. On November 21, 1973, 44-year-old Fred Edward Simmons and his friend, 37-year-old Bob Durwood Moore, were driving in North Florida. They picked up two hitchhikers, 25-year-old Troy Leon Gregg and 16-year-old Sam Adams. Gregg took over driving, and Fred and Bob started drinking. Later that day, they ended up in Gwinnett County, Georgia, where they stopped for a bathroom break. When Fred and Bob exited the restroom, Troy Gregg shot at them with a .25 caliber automatic pistol. The two men, who were drunk, ran to a drainage ditch. Gregg chased after them and jumped into the ditch. He executed 44-year-old Fred Simmons and 37-year-old Bob Moore at point-blank range. Gregg and his friend, Sam Adams, collected the money the men had on them, which was about $400, got into their car, and then drove off. The bodies were discovered the next day. Gregg and Adams may have gotten away with the murders, but they had made a major mistake. Gregg had picked up a hitchhiker in Florida after he took over driving. They told the hitchhiker they were heading to Asheville, North Carolina. The hitchhiker was dropped off in Atlanta about an hour before the murders. When the hitchhiker read about the murders in the newspaper, he contacted the police and told them that Gregg and Adams were heading to Asheville. The police in Asheville were notified to keep an eye out for the stolen car. 3 days after the murders, Gregg and Adams were arrested in Asheville. In February 1974, 26-year-old Troy Gregg was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to death. It's unknown what happened to 16-year-old Sam Adams. Gregg appealed his death sentence, but he lost. Troy Gregg was scheduled to be executed in the electric chair on July 29, 1980. But Gregg was determined not to die that day. Gregg was being held on death row at the Georgia State Prison in Reidsville. For several weeks, Gregg and 3 other death row inmates have been sawing through the bars of their cell with a hacksaw blade. They were finally able to get through the bars the night before Gregg was going to be executed. When they exited the cells, they were wearing prison guard uniforms they had stolen. They climbed onto a catwalk and escaped from the 4th floor using a newly installed fire escape. Then, they walked away from the prison. It was about 2 hours before anyone noticed they were missing. Besides Gregg, the other escapees were Timothy McCordale, Johnny Johnson, and David Jarrell. McCordale was in prison for torturing 17-year-old Donna Marie Dixon to death in January 1974. He cut her with a razor blade and scissors and strangled her to death with nylon stockings. Johnson was on death row after being convicted of raping and shooting to death 20-year-old Suzanne Edenfield in July 1974. Rohl had been convicted of the Christmas Eve 1973 murder of 21-year-old Malice Still. She had been raped and shot in the head. On July 29, 1980, the day Troy Gregg was scheduled to die, his body was found submerged in Mountain Island Lake, nearly 300 miles away from the prison near Charlotte, North Carolina. He had been beaten to death. It turned out that if Gregg had stayed in prison and was executed, he probably would have lived several hours longer. The 3 other escapees were captured 2 days after Gregg's dead body was found. There are 2 stories about how Gregg was killed. One is that Gregg went to a biker bar in North Carolina near the lake where his body was dumped. Gregg was drinking heavily and he was rude to a female member of the bar staff. One of the bikers did not like how he was acting and he and Gregg got into a fight. The biker ended up killing Gregg and then dumped his body in the lake. Another version is that Gregg got into a fight with Timothy McCordale, one of his fellow escapees, and McCordale's friend, James Cecil Horn. Cecil was a member of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. Horn was charged with Gregg's murder, but the charges were later dismissed. Timothy McCordale was executed in September 1987. The 2 other escapees, Johnny Johnson and David Jarrell, had their sentences commuted to life. 71-year-old Johnson is serving a sentence at the Johnson State Prison in Wrightsville, Georgia. Jarrell, who is 69 at the time of this recording, is serving a sentence at the Washington State Prison in Davisboro, Georgia. Do you want to help solve a cold case? If you do, we have some exciting news. We are teaming up with a very well-known DNA and genetic genealogy company to solve a cold case. In a few weeks, we'll release a video with more details about the case we'll help solve. We'll be doing this through YouTube memberships. Half the money we receive will go to funding DNA testing and genetic genealogy, which will hopefully help solve the cold case. We have 2 membership levels, and both will help solve the cold case. But you'll also get more perks with your membership. With our lowest membership, you'll get loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, early access to videos, and a 15% discount on merchandise. With a higher membership, you'll get all those perks, plus an extra 10% off merch, an exclusive members-only video every month, and you'll be able to vote on the video's topic. But we think the most important aspect of the membership is to help solve the cold case. Once the case is solved, we'll do a video about it, and, with your permission, we'll have your name or username appear in the credits. This is your chance to change from a passive observer to an active participant in solving a murder. With your help, we hope to bring a killer to justice and give a family some closure. Not only will you help solve a cold case, but you'll also be supporting this channel as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please keep an eye out for our video about what crime will help solve. In the meantime, if you're interested in membership, please sign up so you can get early access to videos, the exclusive members-only videos, and other perks. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.